Listen to the words as recorded by Matthew. When the wise men had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Rise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I tell you. Herod is going to search for the child to destroy him." Joseph rose and took the child and his mother by night, and they departed for Egypt. He stayed there until the death of Herod, that what the Lord had said through the prophet might be fulfilled. "Out of Egypt I called my son." When Herod had died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Rise, take the child now and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead." He rose, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. And when he heard that Archelaus was ruling over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go back there. And because he had been warned in a dream, he departed for the region of Galilee. He went and dwelt in a town called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken through the prophets might be fulfilled: he shall be called a Nazarene. The gospel of Christ. Praise be to you, O Christ. Please be seated. So the last couple weeks have been, sort of exciting and challenging and fulfilling, I think, for all of us. We had this amazing, 3-4 week period preparing for the birth of Jesus, and then we get to go ahead and do all this to the church and go through an amazing 3 days of presentations and celebrations, which I know many of you at home have watched and participated in, and so far. So we're very grateful for your presence. Over the last week, some of us have had the chance to sort of relax a little bit from the craziness of the holidays. And then there is this attention, this direction we're given to the fact that 2022 is a calendar click away from turning into 2023, and we end up talking about and thinking about, and even in the news, there's this coverage around what will be your New Year's resolutions. Now, I know for sure when I go to the gym on Tuesday, there will be 900 people lined up for a treadmill. I know that. I know they will probably hang in there the first 2 weeks, and then after that, the gym gets pretty quiet again because they all realize that getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning is a bear, and no one wants to do that. And I know when we look at resolutions, we look at things like that, but I don't want to talk today about improvements, because it seems like we spend a lot of time looking at and focusing on improvements. Rather, I'd like to ask us, are we fulfilled? I would like to ask us, are we utilizing to the fullest extent the gifts and the abilities and the talents that God has given to us? Because I think in our rush to try to be better, skinnier, better jobs, all the things that apparently in some way, shape, or form are important to all of us, but I'm not really sure we ever really ask ourselves, are we at our full potential? Are we really acting and working and living a full life to the fullest potential of everything that God has given and gifted us with, our talents? Now, I know for a lot of folks, there will come up these questions of, look, I have to work on my job first. My job's a priority. My family is a priority. Or, I'm too old. I'm already at this age. I'm retired. I just want to sit back. I'm simply suggesting that in the busyness even of our lives, there are talents and gifts that we've all been given. Are we utilizing them to the fullest of what they can be? Are we willing, no matter what the parameters or the different circumstances that surround us, are we looking at whether or not we are fulfilling everything that God has created us to be? There was an individual I spoke with a couple weeks ago, and he was sort of sharing with me the fact that, at this stage of his life, and, he was in his 50s, I think, at this stage of his life, he felt as though he had pretty much accomplished, everything that he wanted to accomplish. He had an agenda, he had a goal, he had objectives, and he spent his time running after and fulfilling all of those. And I thought that was wonderful, clearly. And he said to me, though, there seems to be this point and gap where I feel as though there's still a gnawing somewhere down deep inside of me. There's a force that seems to be pushing me or pulling me at times, both at the same time, that there's something more I'm supposed to be doing. And honestly, I'm not really sure what that is or what that focus is or how that all comes about. And I think today's gospel gave me a little bit of a feeling and an insight. Does it shock anyone else that Joseph has been led, his entire portrayal in the Gospels, Joseph is being led and guided and given direction and instruction through dreams? It's hard to find any story about Joseph that's not connected somehow to a dream, to an angel that's appearing somewhere. Now, those dreams clearly are God's way of indicating to Joseph things that he needs to do, but I would suggest that perhaps some of the dreams that we have, not the responsibilities that we have, not the things we have to do or the things we must do or the obligations we have. I'm not talking about any of that. If for some of us, our dreams and obligations, responsibilities come and align themselves, awesome. But I would say for the vast number of us, we live one life that is required of us to meet obligations or responsibilities we have to ourselves or to families. I'm simply thinking, is there a way that perhaps there are dreams still within inside each and every one of us that we haven't really dug into, we haven't really explored, we haven't given consideration? Maybe it was a thought we had somewhere, and we would think and say to ourselves, well, that's a really nice thought. Even though the thinking or the thought about that or the reflection on some aspect really brings us excitement, we say to ourselves, well, that's a nice dream. But then we go back to our realities, and we never think that in some way, shape, or form we should be pursuing our dreams. And I think somewhere God works in and through our dreams and our desires to move us to those areas of giftedness and talents that we have that we should really explore, that we really should try to incorporate into our lives, that we should give some time to. Because for the vast majority of us, we know this, if you spend all your time just running after obligations and responsibilities, your life becomes rather monotonous, and there's not a lot of satisfaction that comes out of the things that you do because you think in some way, shape, or form that I don't have the time to actually start pursuing some of these things, and so I have to focus on this. And I just wonder if somehow our denial of our dreams is a denial of our potentiality, of what God has given us and the abilities that we haven't explored because we never really followed the dream. And maybe somewhere in the midst of the dream, we determine and we discover aspects of ourselves that we never knew we had a gift for. A friend of mine, about 3 months ago, he got a simple thing of paints, and he got some of that canvas board, and he just started playing around because ever since he was a kid, he always felt like he wanted to do something, and he always felt compelled to draw or to paint. And now, a couple weeks later, Christmas, he got this whole array of things because his family realized that there's a real giftedness that he has. But because he's always been an executive, he's always been busy. He's always doing things. He always feels he has responsibility. He always considered that dream to be much less important than anything else that he was doing. And so he never explored it until one day, somehow he had a day or something, and he went to the store just haphazardly, picked this up, and realized that he has a real talent for that, you know? And, you know, my friend now is in his 70s, you know? So there is something to be said, I think, about the fact that you and I should explore as we begin 2023. What are the gifts? What are the dreams that perhaps we've thought about, but we never dared follow? Because if there is a resolution that we should all have, I think it is the resolution that God has for each of us. God wants us to be content and fulfilled. God wants us to be at our best. God wants us to be happy, to be content, to find that place where inside of us where there's no more gnawing and it's all sort of settled. But we have to cooperate with that, and I think it's really important for 2023, if we're going to do anything, is to determine what are those dreams that we have in our life. Now, I will say that I have had this conversation with someone very recently, within the last couple of days, and they literally said to me they don't know what their dream is. They don't know. And I found myself sort of wondering whether or not, and I really didn't have an answer because, you know, I don't know much about how God gives inspiration, dreams. How does God do all that? But I did think to say to him, well, listen, maybe that's how you start 2023, is by sort of taking some time to reflect upon your life and figure out what are those areas that most interested you that perhaps you never followed in, and also to ask God in the midst of all of it to be the one guiding you. Notice how once God gets involved in the life of Joseph, Mary, and obviously the baby Jesus, that God is constantly speaking and guiding. We somehow think that we need to pull this information out of God, and I'm not really sure that's really necessary. I don't think it's our responsibility to be listening so intently to God. I think it's God's responsibility to be speaking to us. But in order for that to happen, in order for God to fulfill his responsibility of letting us know what is our dream and where and what direction we should be going, we do have a responsibility to be listening. And there is a difference between us praying and interceding and asking God all the time and also sitting back and just listening for what God has to say. I think we spend too much time thinking that a lot of this is under our control, where I think, as in this story, God is constantly revealing himself and showing us and telling us and directing us and guiding us. And I think we have to stop coming up with all the excuses why we cannot and are not fulfilling our dreams. We come up with great excuses. We come up with great excuses. Well, I can't do this because of that. I can't do that because of this. And I'm wondering, though, if somehow in our denial of those areas of our life that might be pulling us in a direction, whether or not there's absolutely something so much more that God wants us to do, no matter what our age, no matter what our occupation. If we let all those responsibilities go, could 2023 lead us into a world of ourselves where we realize a giftedness and a talent that we just never recognized before? Because I think in finding those things, the purpose of resolutions is to bring us to a deeper sense of ourselves and a deeper sense of happiness. Well, what if it's just possible that following our dreams in 2023 get us exactly where it is that we want to go? God bless you.